The sentence was read out in a flat, monotonous voice, like a weather forecast. And before we continue, friends, write in the comments what city you're watching from and what you're doing right now. It's interesting to see how far our stories travel. Marina stood behind the wooden railing and looked at the judge, a middle-aged woman with a tired face and gray roots showing through a badly done dye job. 3 years in a general regime correctional facility. The words dropped like stones into a well, and somewhere at the very bottom of her consciousness, a dull echo sounded. The courtroom smelled of dust and other people's sweat. Behind her, her mother was sobbing. And Marina kept staring at the judge, thinking that she probably had a daughter too. And how would she feel if her own daughter were standing here like this, for nothing? Defendant, do you understand the sentence? Marina nodded. She was 28 years old, and she had not committed the crime she was convicted of. But that no longer mattered. The guards led her toward the exit through a service door. Her mother managed to shout something about an appeal, about a lawyer, about not giving up. Marina turned around, found her in the half-empty room, small, disheveled, in an old beige coat, and tried to smile. It didn't work. The door closed, cutting off her former life with surgical precision. The transport van smelled of metal and hopelessness. Marina sat down on the hard bench, leaned the back of her head against the cold wall, and closed her eyes. In her mind surfaced the face of Helen, the head of the maternity ward, her boss, her mentor, as Marina had once believed. Thin lips always slightly pressed together, as if Helen had just tasted something sour. Attentive eyes behind expensive glasses. A flawless manicure on well-kept hands that hadn't delivered a baby in years. Those hands signed documents, assigned shifts, decided fates, and, as it turned out, knew how to frame subordinates with surgical precision. The vehicle started moving, and Marina headed toward her 3 years. Or rather, 2 years and 1 month, if she got lucky with early release. If she behaved properly, worked, followed the rules. If the stars aligned, if the board was in a good mood, if. She was still clinging to those ifs, because without them it was impossible to breathe. It had all started with an ordinary Tuesday shift 1.5 years earlier. Marina remembered that day in detail, how she drank her morning coffee from her favorite mug that read "World's Best Midwife." A gift from a grateful patient. How she joked with the orderly Valerie about a TV series they both watched. How they brought in a laboring woman, a young girl, barely more than a teenager, frightened and crying. First birth, 20 years old, narrow pelvis, breech presentation. Marina knew right away it would be difficult. She called the on-duty physician. Did everything by protocol. But something went wrong, terribly, irreversibly wrong. The baby died. A boy. 6 pounds 13 ounces. He had been baptized in time, Daniel. Marina later stood in the staff room and stared at her hands. The same hands that so many times had been the first to touch newborns, to pass them to their mothers, to hear that first cry. Now those hands were shaking. She didn't cry. The tears would come later, at night, in the dormitory shower where she was living then. In that moment, she just stood there and looked. The investigation began a week later. Marina was summoned for questioning, at first as a witness. She told everything honestly. Yes, the patient was admitted with a complicated history. Yes, she called the doctor right away. Yes, there were grounds for a C-section, but the decision wasn't hers. The decision was made by Helen, who had shown up in the ward that evening for some reason, maybe to check on things, maybe just out of boredom. It was Helen who said, "Let's wait," and left. It was Helen who didn't sign the transfer to the operating room. It was her "let's wait" that cost little Daniel his life. But somehow, a completely different picture appeared in the case file. There was Marina's signature on a document she had never seen. There was testimony from Nurse Irene, quiet, invisible Irene, with her perpetually frightened eyes, claiming that Marina herself decided to wait, personally forbade calling the department head, personally sent the on-duty physician away. There was an expert report establishing a direct cause and effect link leading straight to the actions of midwife Silverton. Marina tried to explain. She shouted, cried, brought in her notes, pointed at the logbook where the time of the doctor's call was clearly recorded. But the logbook suddenly turned out to be damaged, soaked with something, the pages stuck together, the entries impossible to make out. At the face-to-face confrontation, Irene stared at the floor and repeated her story like a wind-up toy. And Helen sat off to the side, shaking her head with an air of mournful sympathy. I trusted her so much. I believed in her so deeply. What a disappointment. The lawyer her mother hired with her last money, an older man who smelled of tobacco and failure, just spread his hands. It's your word against theirs. The documents are against you. The expert report is against you. The testimony is against you. If only you could prove that signature was forged. But a handwriting analysis cost money they didn't have. And the Free State exam concluded the signature was genuine. Most likely, Marina simply didn't remember signing it. Stress, shock, defensive amnesia. It happens. It happens. Those two words haunted her for a long time after that. It happens that innocent people go to prison. It happens that management walks away clean. It happens that no one wants to dig into the truth because it's easier to believe a lie. The correctional facility was located 4 hours from the city, beyond a settlement with the telling name of Clearwater. There was little light there. Gray barracks, gray sky, gray faces. Marina arrived in December, when the snow hadn't really settled yet and the mud squelched underfoot like something alive. She was assigned to a unit, given a uniform, a bunk in the corner, a number. Now she was no longer Marina Silverton, just an inmate serving time under the charge of involuntary manslaughter. She barely remembered the first months. It was as if she were watching her life through fogged glass. Waking up on command, eating tasteless porridge, working in the sewing shop where they made mittens for some unknown construction workers. The needle went into the rough fabric, came out, went in again. Marina counted the stitches, and that was the only thing keeping her afloat. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Like a metronome. Like the heartbeat of the baby she couldn't save. Her mother came for visits every 2 months, like clockwork. She brought packages, candy, warm socks, letters. She wrote to Marina's father, who had long since lived with another family and wasn't very interested in the fate of his daughter from his first marriage. She wrote to newspapers, to advocacy groups, to the governor's office. From everywhere came the same form replies. The case had been reviewed, the sentence was lawful, no grounds for reconsideration had been found. "Mom, stop," Marina said during one visit. They were sitting in the long-term visitation room, and her mother suddenly seemed so old to her, so small. "You're wearing yourself out. Nothing can be changed now. Let's just get through this. I'll get out early, start over. Everything will be fine." Her mother looked at her, tears in her eyes. "You're not guilty," she said. "You're not guilty, and I know that. And God knows it too." Marina nodded. She knew it as well. But that knowledge didn't warm her, didn't comfort her, didn't get her out of prison. It just existed like a splinter, like a stone at the bottom of a well. In the facility, Marina made a friend, Nina, a sturdy woman in her 40s with a weathered face and laughing eyes. Nina was in for fraud, something involving fake certificates for social benefits. "I was stupid," she said simply. "Thought I'd come up with a clever scheme, but the scheme came up with me. It's fine, I'll be out soon, babysit my grandkids." Nina had 3 children and 5 grandchildren, and she talked about them endlessly, with such love that Marina sometimes felt lighter. Someone else's happiness, even stolen, even darkened by prison walls, was still happiness. Nina taught her how to knit. It was allowed in the facility, and yarn could be ordered through relatives. Marina knitted scarves, socks, simple hats. Her fingers worked mechanically, and her mind was freed. She thought about the future, that unclear, foggy after, waiting somewhere beyond the barbed wire fence. Where would she go? What would she do for work? Medicine was closed to her, a conviction under that charge left no chances. So something else. A cashier? A cleaner? A waitress? She ran through the options like prayer beads, and none of them felt real. Sometimes at night she dreamed of that boy, Daniel. In the dream he was alive, pink, with a scowling little face and strong fists. He cried loudly, demanding, the way all healthy newborns cry. And Marina reached out her hands to him, wanted to take him, pass him to his mother, but suddenly he vanished, dissolved, and she woke up with wet cheeks. After those dreams, she lay awake until morning, staring at the ceiling stained with old leaks. Time in the facility passed strangely, both slowly and quickly at once. The days dragged on, but the months flew by. Marina worked, followed the rules, received commendations. She was the ideal inmate, quiet, obedient, unnoticed. The other women treated her differently, some sympathized, some kept their distance, some openly disliked her. The doctor, one of her barracks mates, sneered, a large woman with tattooed arms. All clean and proper. Marina didn't argue, didn't justify herself. What was the point? Everyone here had their own truth and their own pain. In her second year, she learned that Helen had received some kind of medical award. Her mother brought the newspaper. Why, Marina didn't know. Maybe she thought her daughter should be aware. In the photo, Helen stood in a beautiful suit, holding a bouquet, smiling, that signature smile, lips stretched wide, eyes cold. Distinguished physician, the caption read, for many years of contribution to the development of maternal care. Marina stared at the photo for a long time, until the letters began to blur. Then she carefully folded the newspaper and handed it back to her mother. Throw it away. Her mother nodded, but Marina knew she wouldn't. She would save it somewhere, with other clippings and documents, in her Marina case folder that she kept with obsessive persistence. The following spring, Marina applied for early release. The paperwork was gathered quickly: positive evaluations, work certificates, letters of appreciation from the shop supervisors. The board met in May, when the grass outside the windows was already green and unseen birds were singing. Marina stood before the table where strangers sat and answered questions. Yes, she understood. Yes, she repented. Yes, she would lead a law-abiding life. The words came out automatically, like memorized lines. She didn't repent. How could she repent for something she hadn't done? But the board needed the right words, and she said them. The decision was announced a week later. Granted early release. Marina accepted the news calmly. By then she had forgotten how to feel joy. Nina hugged her, slipped a piece of paper with a phone number into her hand. Call if you need anything. I'll be out in 3 months too, maybe we'll meet on the outside. Marina nodded, though she knew she wouldn't call. Not because she didn't want to, but because she needed to forget everything. The facility, the court, the hospital, all of it. She was released in June, when summer was already in full swing and the air smelled of warm earth. Her mother was waiting outside the gates, still small, still unbreakable. They hugged right there on the dusty road, under the curious gazes of the guards. Her mother cried. Marina didn't. Inside her was an empty room, like in an abandoned house. They went home, to the small 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Portland where Marina had grown up. The apartment smelled the same as in her childhood: lavender soap, old books, and her mother's baking. In the kitchen, the table was set, chicken soup, pies, fresh cucumber salad. Her mother bustled around, serving, urging her to eat more. Marina ate and looked out the window. In the yard, children were swinging. Ordinary children, nobodies, unfamiliar. She turned away. The first weeks of freedom were strange. Marina didn't know what to do with herself. She woke up early out of habit, wandered around the apartment while her mother slept. She went to the store and caught the looks of neighbors who, of course, knew everything. In a small city, there are no secrets. That's the one who reached her in fragments. She pretended not to hear. Finding a job turned out to be difficult. Her record glowed in her paperwork like a signal flare. Marina went to interview shops, cafes, warehouses. Everywhere it was the same. First, interest. Oh, you have medical training? Then caution. And why did you leave the profession? Then a polite refusal. We'll call you. They never did. Marina came home, lay down on the couch, and stared at the ceiling. Her mother cooked, did laundry, cleaned, and stayed silent. She understood that her daughter needed time. Just time. In August, Marina got a job as a cleaner at a shopping mall. The work wasn't fancy, literally dusty, of course, but simple enough. Mopping floors, wiping display cases, taking out the trash. The pay was low, but it was at least some money, and Marina didn't have to feel like a freeloader. Her co-workers, women with hard lives of their own, didn't ask questions. Everyone there had a past they didn't talk about. Fall came early, bringing rain and the first frosts. Marina worked, came home, ate her mom's food, and went to bed. On weekends she walked in the park alone, without a goal, just to keep moving. Sometimes she went into a church not to pray, just to stand in the quiet and look at the candle flames. She wasn't especially religious, but the church felt calm, and no one bothered her with questions. One day in the church, an old woman approached her tiny, wrinkled, like a baked apple. "You're having a hard time, sweetheart," she said, looking up at her. "I can see it's hard. But it'll pass. The Lord sees." Marina didn't understand the part about seeing, but she nodded. The old woman patted her hand. Her palm was warm and dry, like parchment, and then she shuffled away in worn slippers. Marina watched her go and thought, "She's right, everything passes. Even this." By winter, she felt a little more alive. She talked more with her mom, watched TV, even laughed sometimes at silly things, at the neighbor's cat that had taken to sleeping on their doormat, at the TV show her mom watched in the evenings. Life flowed like a river under ice, slowly, but unstoppable. In February, her mom got sick. First a cold, then complications, then the hospital. Marina rushed between work and the hospital room, bringing broth, sitting by the bed. Her mom lay there small and pale, eyes closed, and Marina felt truly afraid for the first time. She would be alone. Completely alone. If her mom... No. She couldn't think about that. Her mom pulled through slowly, with difficulty, but she did. The doctors talked about a weak heart, about taking care, avoiding stress, watching blood pressure. Marina nodded and wrote everything down in a notebook. She brought her mom home, quit her job, and took care of her. Money was tight, but they managed somehow her mom's pension, a little savings, selling unnecessary things. In the spring, her mom said, "You need to leave." They were sitting in the kitchen, drinking tea, and water was dripping from the roofs outside. "Where?" Marina asked. "Anywhere. Start over. Everyone knows you here. You'll never be free here." Marina stayed silent. She had thought about it herself. Leaving. Somewhere no one knew her story. Where she could just be Marina, not that midwife. But where? And with what money? The answer came unexpectedly, from where they least expected it. In April, a Romani woman knocked on their door. Marina opened it and froze on the threshold. The woman was older, heavyset, wearing a colorful skirt and a shawl over her shoulders. Dark hair streaked with gray was tied in a knot, large gold earrings swayed in her ears. But the main thing was her eyes, black, lively, looking with a strange kind of interest. "Hello, sweetheart," the woman said in a deep voice. "Your name is Marina, right?" Marina nodded, not understanding how she knew her name. "My name is Zemfira. I'm here on business." It turned out Zemfira wasn't a street fortune teller, but, as she put it, a woman with real estate. Many years ago, her husband, also Romani, but settled down, worked as a forest ranger somewhere in the woods of northern Washington state. They had a house there, small but solid, with a bathhouse and a plot of land. Her husband had died 5 years earlier, and the house remained. Zemfira never went there, too far, too expensive, and why would she need the woods in her old age? She lived with her children, moving from one to another, and the house stood abandoned. "I want to sell it," Zemfira said, sipping tea. Marina's mom, of course, had seated her at the table and poured her a cup. But who needs something like that? Middle of nowhere, 15 kilometers to the station, 100 to the city. Who would go there? She looked at Marina for a long moment. "And would you go?" Marina didn't know what to say. Forests, wilderness. An abandoned house. It sounded crazy. But something inside her, something that had been silent all these years, suddenly stirred. Silence. No one around. No stairs, no whispers, no that one. Just the forest, the sky, and her. "How much?" she asked. Zemfira named a price, ridiculous, almost symbolic. Less than her mom's washing machine had cost. Marina thought it had to be a scam, that next would come, but first pay for paperwork, certificates, this and that. But Zemfira pulled a folder of documents from her bag, real ones, with stamps and registry numbers, and laid them on the table. "Everything's clean," she said. "The house is in my name, inherited from my husband. We can go to a notary even tomorrow." Her mom looked at Marina, and there was something strange in her eyes, not fear, not doubt, but Hope? Why me? Marina asked. Do you know me from somewhere? Zemfira smirked, a gold tooth flashing in the depths of her mouth. A little bird brought it. I have an acquaintance, Nina. Maybe you remember her. You did time together, right? Nina. Of course. Marina remembered. She had told Nina about her mom, about Portland, about wanting to go far away. Nina must have remembered and passed the word to her acquaintance, the Romani woman with a house in the forest. Nina says you're a good person, Zemfira continued. That you suffered unfairly. I understand that. When I was younger, I was locked up twice for nothing just for being Romani. So I can smell people like you. She finished her tea and turned the cup upside down, an old habit. Think about it. But not for long. I am leaving for my daughter's place in Seattle the day after tomorrow. Decide? Call me. She left a phone number and went out, taking with her the smell of smoke and something spicy, perfume or spices, hard to tell. Marina sat at the table, staring at the documents, trying to understand what had just happened. Go, her mom said quietly. Go, sweetheart. This is your chance. Marina looked up at her. And you? I can't leave you. You're sick. You need care. Her mom shook her head. I need to know that you're living. Really living, not just existing. Here, you're wasting away. I see it every day, and I can't help. She paused. Gail will look after me. You know Gail, the neighbor upstairs? We've already talked. She's lonely too, needs company. We'll grow old together. Marina realized her mom had thought everything through. Maybe a long time ago. Maybe from the very moment she said, you need to leave. And this meeting with the Romani woman might not have been an accident at all. Nina, passing the word to Zemfira? Marina didn't ask. What difference did it make how it all came together? What mattered was that it did. 3 days later, she stood in a notary's office, signing the sales contract. Zemfira was pleased not about the money, there was barely any, but about the fact that the house wouldn't stand empty. Take care of it, she asked as they parted. My husband built it. He was a good man. Let the house live. She pressed a bundle of keys into Marina's hand, 2 large iron ones and 1 small one for a padlock. This one's for the front door, this one's for the shed, and this one's for the cellar. My husband kept supplies there. The keys were heavy and cold. Marina clenched them in her fist. Packing took a week. There weren't many things: clothes, books, a few household items. Her mom insisted Marina take the family tea set, old, with a gold rim, from her grandmother. For your housewarming, she said. You'll drink tea and think of me. Marina hugged her tight, for a long time, like in childhood. I'll come back, she promised. I'll get settled and come back. Or you'll come to me in the summer, when it's warm. Her mom nodded, but they both knew it was unlikely. Too far, too hard with a weak heart. They didn't want to say it out loud. The train left early in the morning. Marina sat by the window and watched the platform slide away, with a small figure in a blue coat standing on it. Her mom waved until the very end, until she disappeared from view. Marina leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes. That was it. Now only forward. The journey took almost a full day, by train to Spokane, then by bus to the district center, then a ride with someone to the settlement. The settlement was called Cedarville and consisted of about 30 houses, a store, a medical outpost, and a community hall that, judging by its looks, hadn't been open in 20 years. Marina got out of the car. An old local man in a pickup had given her a ride and looked around. Forests surrounded her. Real, dense forests, smelling of pine and dampness. The sky was gray and low, and somewhere in the distance a crow was cawing. You've got farther to go, the old man said, pointing to a dirt road disappearing into the woods. About 7 kilometers. 2 hours on foot. Or Michael might give you a lift on his tractor, if he hasn't left yet. Luckily, Michael hadn't left. He turned out to be a solid man in his 50s, quiet and unsmiling. He looked at Marina, her suitcase, her city shoes, and snorted. Hop on. The tractor rattled and shook over every bump, but Marina was grateful even for that. There was no way she could have walked 7 kilometers through the forest with a suitcase. The house appeared suddenly, around a bend, in a small clearing. Marina saw it and froze. She had expected a shacksome crooked hut with a collapsed roof. But the house was beautiful. Log-built, solid, with carved window frames. The roof was covered with dark shingles, a bit mossy but intact. A porch with a canopy stood in front, with a bathhouse and a shed nearby. Everything was overgrown with grass, but it was clear it had been built to last. Decent, Michael said, which was high praise. I knew Freddie, the guy who lived here. Your seller's husband, I mean. Golden hands. Shame he died. He helped unload the suitcase, stood there a bit longer, looking at the house. If you need anything, come to the settlement. Ask for me, Michael or Lucy, the nurse. She'll explain everything, what's where. All right. Take care. The tractor rattled off, taking with it the last connection to civilization. Marina was alone. Completely alone. The forest stood silent around her, and somewhere far away a woodpecker tapped. She took out the keys and walked up to the door. The lock was rusty, but it gave way. The door creaked loudly, drawn out, like in old movies, and opened. Inside, it was dark. Marina stepped over the threshold, felt along the wall, searched for a switch. A click and nothing. Of course. No electricity. Zemfira had warned her the connection would need to be restored, and that wouldn't be quick. Marina took out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam darted across the walls, pulling fragments out of the darkness: a stove in the corner, a table with oilcloth, a bench along the wall, some shelves. And then she heard a sound. Quiet, but distinct. Like someone sniffing. Marina froze. Her heart beat fast and loud. Someone was in the house. She slowly moved the flashlight, lighting corners, nooks. The space behind the stove and the beam stopped on a bed. An old iron bed with a sagging wire frame, covered with rags. And on that bed, curled into the corner, sat a child. Small. About 5 or 6 years old. With messy dark hair and huge, frightened eyes. She looked at Marina and clutched a dirty stuffed toy to her chest. Maybe a bunny, maybe a bear, hard to tell. Who are you? Marina's voice came out hoarse. The girl didn't answer. She just pressed herself harder into the wall, like a trapped animal. Marina stood in the middle of a strange house, and a strange forest, thousands of miles from everything she knew, looking at this child. And she absolutely didn't understand what was going on. Her first impulse was to come closer, hug her, ask where her mom was, how she got here, if everything was okay. But Marina stopped herself. Sudden movements would only scare her more. She slowly crouched down, trying to seem smaller, less threatening. Hi, she said softly. My name is Marina. What's yours? The girl stayed silent. Her eyes shone in the flashlight beam, like a little owl's. Marina noticed she was wearing something that vaguely resembled a dress, maybe a robe, maybe a nightgown too big, slipping off her shoulders. Her bare feet were dirty. Are you hungry? Marina asked. Do you want something to eat? At the word eat, something flickered across the girl's face. She nodded slightly. Barely. Marina straightened up. Wait here, she said. I'll be right back. She stepped out onto the porch toward the suitcase. Somewhere at the bottom were supplies for the first few days: bread, canned food, cookies. Her mom had packed them. Marina found a package of cookies and went back inside. The girl was sitting in the same spot, but her eyes no longer looked so frightened. Now there was anticipation in them. Marina came closer, carefully, the way you approach a wild animal, and held out the cookies. Here. A small hand shot out of the darkness, grabbed the treat, and instantly disappeared again. The girl ate greedily, stuffing the cookies into her mouth whole, barely chewing. Marina's heart clenched. She sat down on the edge of the bed, far enough away not to scare her, and waited. When the cookies were gone, the girl looked at her. Not with fear now, but with some strange thoughtfulness. Ally, she suddenly said. Her voice was quiet and hoarse, as if it hadn't been used in a long time. What? Marina asked. My name is Ally. Ally, Marina repeated. That's a beautiful name. Is it short for Allison? Or Alexandra? The girl shrugged. She didn't know. Or didn't remember. The next few hours Marina spent in a state of controlled panic. Something had to be done, but what? Call the police? There was no signal here in the wilderness. Reception was only on the hill a kilometer from the house. Michael had warned her. Take the girl to the settlement? How? On foot, 7 kilometers with a child who clearly wasn't in good shape. She decided to postpone the big decisions until morning. First, get settled. Light the stove, heat some water, feed Ally real food. Then figure things out. The stove turned out to be functional. Firewood was in the shed, birch bark for kindling was there too. Marina didn't manage it right away. There was smoke, muttering curses, burned fingers twice. But when the fire finally caught, humming and spreading warmth through the chilled house, she felt something like pride. She had done it. Ally sat on the bench, wrapped in a blanket Marina had taken from the suitcase. She stared at the fire without blinking, and there was something ancient in it, child in flame. Marina put a pot of water on the stove. Instant porridge, not a delicacy, but it would do. While the water was boiling, she tried to ask the girl some questions. Carefully, gently, without pressure. Ally, do you live here alone? Yes. For a long time? A shrug. And where is your mom? Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then. She left. Left. That could mean anything. Went somewhere. Died. Abandoned her. Marina didn't press. There would be time. Was anyone else here? Any adults? Ally thought. An uncle came. A long time ago. He brought food. Then he stopped. What uncle? I don't know. Just an uncle. Marina rubbed her forehead. The story was getting stranger. A child alone in an abandoned house in the middle of the forest. Some uncle who brought food and then vanished. How long had she been here? Weeks? Months? The porridge was ready. Marina poured it into a bowl, the same one from her grandmother's tea set, with the gold rim, and handed it to Ally. She ate more slowly than she had the cookies. Maybe she was full. Or maybe she just didn't believe the food wouldn't run out. Is it good? Marina asked. Ally nodded. I'm going to live here now, Marina said, not knowing why she said it. Do you mind? The girl looked at her. Something flickered in her eyes, hope? Fear, and then went out. I don't mind. Marina spent the night barely sleeping. She put Ally on the bed, covered her with her own blanket, and settled herself on the bench. She listened to the stove crackling, the wind outside the windows, the quiet breathing of the child. And she thought, what now? Logic said one thing: report it to the police, hand the girl over to child services, let them sort it out. But something inside resisted. She had seen how Ally flinched at loud sounds. How she pressed into the corner when Marina came too close. How she hid food under the pillow, saving it for later, for a bad day. This child had been through something terrible. To hand her over to the system, to a shelter, to strangers. After everything Marina herself had been through with the system, that thought felt like betrayal. But she couldn't keep Ally with her either. That would be kidnapping? Illegal custody? She was already an ex-con, one mistake, and she'd be back behind bars. No. She would tell everything as it was. Let them look for the girl's relatives, figure out what happened. And for now, she would look after Ally. Here, in the house. Not as a kidnapper, but as a temporary guardian. That was normal, right? Normal. The morning was sunny. Marina stepped out onto the porch and caught her breath. Forest stretched all around, endless, green, fading into the horizon. The sky was blue and clean, the kind of blue you never see in the city. Somewhere very close, a bird was singing bright, joyful. And the air god, the air here. It smelled of pine, damp earth, something sweet, maybe flowers. It's beautiful, Ally said. Marina turned around. The girl stood in the doorway, still in her awkward robe dress, still barefoot. But her face was different now, not frightened, but somehow open. Very beautiful, Marina agreed. Let's go wash up. Then we'll eat and go to the settlement. At the word settlement, Ally tensed. Why? We need to, Marina said gently. We need to find your relatives. They're probably worried. No relatives, Ally replied evenly. No one. Then we need to find people who can take care of you. And you? Me? I can't. I'm not your mom. Ally looked at her for a long time, without blinking. Then she said, okay. And went to wash up. The road to the settlement took almost 3 hours. Ally walked slowly, weakened by hunger, and her feet were sore. Marina gave her spare sneakers, stuffing socks inside so they wouldn't slip off. Still too big, but better than nothing. They stopped to rest every half hour. Marina carried Ally on her back over the hardest stretches, roots, fallen trees, streams. The girl weighed almost nothing, and that made it even sadder. They were met warily in the settlement. Lucy, the nurse, a large woman with a red, withered face, looked at Ally and frowned. And who's this? Marina explained. Found her in the house, didn't know where she was from, brought her to people. Lucy snorted. Come on. The local officer sat in a small office attached to the community hall, the same hall that hadn't worked in 20 years, though the space was still used for administrative needs. His name was Sergeant Williams. He was a middle-aged man with a mustache, a belly, and the look of chronic exhaustion on his face. He listened to Marina, nodded, wrote something in a notebook. Then he looked at Ally. What's your name, kid? Ally. And your last name? Silence. Where are your parents? Silence. Sergeant Williams sighed. Got it. We'll figure it out. He made some calls, long, tedious ones, repeating the situation several times to different people. Finally, he hung up and looked at Marina. Here's the deal. This won't be resolved in a couple of days. We need to look for relatives, check databases, send inquiries. We don't have a shelter here. The nearest one is in the district center. They'll take her there, but not before Tuesday. No vehicle right now, and the paperwork needs to be done. He paused. Could you keep her with you for now? Since she was already with you. Marina opened her mouth to object, but looked at Ally. The girl was sitting quietly, hands folded on her knees. She wasn't crying, wasn't asking for anything, just staring at the floor with that obedient patience that only children who learned early that nothing depends on them seem to have. Yes, Marina said. Of course. They returned to the house by evening. Marina carried not only Ally, but also a bag of groceries. Lucy had lent them some food until payday, whatever that meant here, and also gave them a blanket, old but warm. For now, Lucy said. Nights are still cold. She looked at Marina strangely, not judgmental, but somehow assessing. As if she were trying to figure out what kind of person this city woman was, and whether she could be trusted. The house was cold, the stove had gone out. Marina fussed with the fire again, and Ally sat on the bench watching. Do you know how? The girl suddenly asked. How to heat the stove? I'm learning, Marina answered honestly. Ally nodded. She stood up, came closer, and showed her. Put it like this. And opened the draft. Aunt Rosa did it that way. Aunt Rosa. The first name she had mentioned. Marina didn't ask who that was, didn't want to push. But she remembered it. That evening, after dinner, potatoes with canned meat, a luxury after weeks of hunger, Ally suddenly began to talk on her own. Quietly, monotonously, staring into the fire. Her mom had died. A long time ago, Ally didn't remember when. She only remembered that her mom coughed, and then stopped. Then there was Aunt Rosa, kind, smelled nice. Aunt Rosa took Ally in, to this house. They lived together. Aunt Rosa treated people with herbs, gathered mushrooms and berries. Sometimes an uncle came in a car, brought food and money. Then Aunt Rosa died too. One day she just didn't wake up. Ally lay next to her all day, until she realized Aunt Rosa was cold and not breathing. Then she got scared and ran outside. She sat there until the uncle came. He took Aunt Rosa away where, Ally didn't know. He said he would come back. But he didn't. Marina listened and felt something bitter and tight squeeze her throat. This child had seen 2 deaths. Had been left alone in a house in the middle of the forest, without food, without help. For how long? Weeks? A month? And somehow she survived. Ate what she found: crackers, old supplies. Drank water from the stream. Waited for the uncle to return. You did great, Marina said when Ally fell silent. You're very strong and brave. Ally looked at her without expression, without emotion. Just took note of it. That night, Marina didn't sleep again. She lay there thinking about Aunt Rosa. From everything, it seemed she was the same Romani woman, the wife of Freddie, the former owner of the house. But Zemfira had said her husband died 5 years ago and that she herself was his wife. So Rosa another woman? A first wife? Or had Zemfira lied, and her husband had been alive until recently, and Rosa was some relative? Marina's head spun. Some kind of Romani polygamy? She set the box aside. It didn't matter. What mattered was Ally. In the morning, she went to the shed. There, among tools and old things, she found a box of documents. Neatly stacked papers, some receipts, a birth certificate not Ally's, but someone else's. A man, born in 1962. Frederick. The last name was blurred, unreadable. And a photograph. Black and white, worn. A man in a shirt, next to a woman with dark hair. Both smiling. On the back, faded ink, Freddie and Rosa, 1985. So Rosa was the first wife. And Zemfira the second? Or the other way around? Marina put the box down. It didn't matter. Tuesday came and went. The officer called. By then, Marina had discovered that there was reception not on the hill, but on the roof of the bathhouse if you stood on a crate and stretched your arm out. He said there was still no vehicle, but to expect one for sure next week. Marina waited. She fed Ally, taught her to read from an old children's book found in the house, walked with her in the forest, showed her birds, squirrels, animal tracks. Ally thought slowly, drop by drop. Sometimes she even smiled. And the day she laughed at Marina falling into the stream after slipping on a rock, it felt like a miracle. A week passed. Then another. The vehicle still didn't come. Sergeant Williams called, apologized, talked about funding issues, cutbacks, superiors dragging their feet. Marina listened and nodded. Then she hung up and went to Ally to make lunch, play with stones, read fairy tales out loud. She caught herself wanting the vehicle less and less. At the end of May, a commission arrived. 2 people from the District Child Services, a woman with glasses and a man with a briefcase. They inspected the house, talked to Ally, filled out paperwork. The woman looked at Marina with professional suspicion who she was, where she came from, why the child was with her. Do you understand that you can't just keep her with you? The woman asked. That's illegal. I understand, Marina replied. I'm ready to apply for temporary guardianship. Or whatever the proper process is. While you look for relatives. The woman exchanged a glance with her colleague. We'll check your background. Do you have a criminal record? Marina was silent for a second. Then she said, yes. Involuntary manslaughter. The air in the room grew thick. The woman pressed her lips together. You worked in medicine? Yes. As what? A midwife. And after that, you want to take custody of a child? Marina felt something hot and angry rise inside her. She had heard this so many times before, the judgment in the voice, the distrust in the eyes. But now, with Ally standing beside her, looking up with those huge eyes, it was unbearable. I was innocent, she said quietly. I was framed. But that doesn't matter, does it? All that matters to you is the piece of paper with the verdict. The woman didn't respond. She just wrote something in her notebook. They left, taking Ally with them. Marina stood on the porch and watched the car disappear behind the trees. The girl turned in the back window and waved, a small, lost figure behind the glass. And that was it. The following days blurred into one gray smear. Marina did things: heated the stove, cooked food, cleaned the house, but all of it mechanically, without meaning. She caught herself setting the table for two out of habit, talking out loud to an empty room. The house, which had seemed like salvation not long ago, now pressed in on her, suffocating. A week later, she went to the settlement. Lucy the nurse met her at the door, as if she had been waiting. "Come in," she said. "I'll pour some tea." They sat in a small kitchen, drinking strong tea with jam, and Lucy talked. She knew Rosa, the one who had died. Rosa was Romani, Freddie's second wife. The first one, Zemfira, had left him many years earlier when she found out about Rosa. They never officially divorced either out of laziness or because of some Romani traditions. They simply separated. Zemfira went back to her people, and Freddie stayed with Rosa. They lived well, quietly, bothering no one. When Freddie died, Rosa was left alone. Then a girl was brought to her, the daughter of one of her relatives, a young woman who had died of tuberculosis. Rosa took the child in. She didn't file any paperwork. Why would she? The girl was family, Romani. That's how they lived, until Rosa died too. And the uncle? Marina asked. Ally talked about some uncle who brought food. Lucy shook her head. I don't know. Maybe someone from the camp came by to check on them. Or maybe not from the camp, who knows, who wanders through the woods. I just remember he was last seen in winter. Mike the hunter spotted an unfamiliar car. No one since. Marina said goodbye and walked home. Thoughts spun in her head, fragmented, tangled. Ally had been taken to a shelter. She was alone there now, among strangers, after everything she had been through. And no one would come for her, no one would take her. She had no relatives. Or rather, maybe she did somewhere in Romani communities, but who would look for them? Who would care? She would. She cared. The decision came suddenly, like a flash. Marina stopped in the middle of the forest, looked up at the blue, indifferent sky, and said out loud, I'm taking her back. No matter what it costs. After that, everything moved fast. Marina traveled to the district center hitchhiking, taking buses, however she could. She found the shelter, a gray building behind an iron fence. She found the director, a tired woman with kind eyes, and explained everything. The director listened, nodded, sighed. You understand that with your record this is almost impossible? I understand. You'll be denied. Child services, the court, everywhere. I'll try. The director looked at her for a long time, carefully. Then she said, come on Sunday. It's visiting day. I'll let you see the girl. And then we'll see. Marina came on Sunday. And the next one. And the one after that. Ally ran to her across the yard, clutched her jacket, refused to let go. You came. You came. They walked around the grounds, sat on a bench, talked. Ally told her about her group, about her caregiver, Miss Mary, who was kind but strict, about a boy named Danny who was always fighting. Marina listened, nodded, remembered. And every time she left, she promised, I'll be back. Soon. Hang on a little longer. She hired a lawyer. Or rather, found free legal aid through a nonprofit organization. A young man with glasses named Anthony took on her case with the enthusiasm of someone who still believed in justice. They filed for guardianship. As expected, they were denied criminal record, lack of stable income, housing in a remote area. They appealed. Denied again. They went to court. The hearing was set for September. Marina prepared as if for a final battle. She gathered references from Lucy the nurse, from Michael, from the shelter director. Even from Sergeant Williams, the local officer, who had somehow come to respect her over those months. She found work remote, online, some simple copywriting. The pay was modest but steady. She restored electricity to the house. Did some repairs, not major, but enough. She showed photos of the room she had prepared for Ally Bright, with new floral wallpaper. The chances aren't great, Anthony said. But we'll try. In August, Marina called her mom. For the first time in months. They had been texting, but there was never time or reception to talk. Her mom listened, gasped, cried into the phone. Sweetheart, are you sure? That's such a responsibility. I'm sure, Mom. I've never been this sure about anything. The court hearing took place on September 10th. A small courtroom, few people. Marina, Anthony, a representative from Child Services, a prosecutor. And the judge, a woman with a tired face, just like the one who had once read Marina her sentence. No, of course not the same one. It just felt that way. They listened for a long time. Marina spoke about how she found Ally, how she cared for her, why she wanted to take her in. The Child Services representative objected: criminal record, risks, unsuitable conditions. The prosecutor remained neutral. Anthony presented arguments, cited laws, showed documents. The judge listened, took notes. At one point she asked, the defendant, excuse me, the petitioner, you served time for involuntary manslaughter of a child. Do you think the parents of that child would approve of your decision to take custody of another child? Marina was silent. The room was silent. Even the clock on the wall seemed to stop ticking. Then she said, I don't know what that boy's parents think. I tried to contact them after my release, but they didn't want to speak to me. And I understand them. They lost a child, and someone had to answer for it. I answered. I served 2 years. I lost my profession, my reputation, the life I had. But I didn't become worse because of it. I became different. I know what injustice is. I know what loneliness is. I know what it feels like when the whole world is against you. And I know that this girl, Ally, feels the same way. I can't bring that boy back. I can't fix the past. But I can give this girl a future. If you allow me to. The judge looked at her for a long time, without looking away. Then she nodded and declared a recess. The decision was announced 3 hours later. Approved. To place the minor Ally. Marina learned the girl's last name, then they had found it in some of Rose's old records. Under the guardianship of citizen Marina Silverton. With a probationary period. With regular inspections. With multiple conditions. Marina stood in the courtroom and couldn't believe it. Anthony shook her hand, saying something about precedent and the importance of the case. The Child Services representative pressed his lips together but stayed silent. And Marina just stood there, thinking, it worked. It worked. She picked up Ally a week later. Paperwork, final formalities, packing it all passed in a blur. And then they were standing on the shelter's porch, Ally holding her hand, and the director waving to them from the window. Let's go home, Marina said. Home, Ally repeated. And smiled. The trip back was long, but it didn't feel heavy anymore. Train, then bus, then a ride with someone, and the whole time they talked. Ally told her about the shelter, about her friends, about how much she had missed her. Marina told her about the house, the settlement, what awaited them. They made plans, painting the walls, getting a cat, learning to bake pies. When they finally reached the house, the same 7 kilometers through the forest, but now twice as fast, the sun was already setting. The forest stood golden, autumnal, unbearably beautiful. Ally stopped at the edge of the clearing and said, I remember. Remember what? Everything. How Aunt Rosa lived here. How we walked together. How she read me stories. She paused. I thought I'd forget. But I didn't. Marina hugged her. Don't forget. It's important to remember the people we loved. They went into the house. The stove was cold, but the firewood was stacked and ready. Marina had prepared it before leaving. She lit the fire, put on the kettle, took out the food. Ally walked through the rooms, touching things as if greeting old friends. And the grandma's tea set, she asked. The one with the gold rim? Marina smiled. On the shelf. Get it, we'll have tea. They drank tea from the grandmother's cups and watched the darkness fall outside the windows. Ally grew tired and fell asleep right at the table. Marina carried her to her room. The one with the new floral wallpaper laid her in bed, covered her with a blanket. Good night, she whispered. Good night, Mom, Ally answered, already half asleep. Marina froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Then she bent down, kissed the girl on the forehead, and quietly closed the door. In the kitchen, she sat at the table for a long time, watching the fire in the stove. Mom. Someone had called her that for the first time. It was strange, frightening, beautiful all at once. She, a former inmate, a former midwife, a former everything, was now a mom. Adoptive, on paper only a guardian. But a mom. She took out her phone, stepped onto the porch. Reception only worked in one specific spot, and called her own mother. The real one, waiting in Portland. "Mom, everything's okay. We're home." She called me Mom. There was silence on the other end. Then her mom sniffled. "My girl. My sweet girl. I'm so happy for you." They talked for half an hour about Ally, about the court, about plans. Her mom promised to come visit in the spring, when it got warmer. Marina promised to meet her. When she hung up, the stars were already burning in the sky, bright and close, like nowhere else. Life went on. This time, for real. Fall passed quickly, filled with chores, care, discoveries. Marina was learning how to be a mother. Ally was learning how to be a daughter. Both were doing it for the first time, and both made mistakes. There were arguments, small, childish ones over unfinished porridge or toys left out. There were tears from exhaustion, from misunderstanding, from old wounds that sometimes resurfaced. But there were joys, too many of them, every day, in small things. The first snow they caught together in their palms. The first Christmas tree decorated with handmade ornaments. Their first New Year together, with salad, tangerines, and whispered wishes. "I wished for you to always be with me," Ally confessed. "Me too," Marina replied. "You guessed my wish." Winter turned out to be harsh. The cold was biting, the snow piled up to waist height. Marina learned how to clear paths, split firewood, and insulate the pipes so they wouldn't freeze. Ally helped, serious, focused, wearing a funny knitted hat with a pom-pom. On Saturdays they heated the bathhouse, steamed, then drank tea with honey and watched the blizzard howl outside the windows. It was happiness, simple, real, without anything mixed in. In February, Ally started school. Or rather, school came to her. Lucy, the nurse, made an arrangement with a teacher from the settlement, and she began coming twice a week to teach Ally at home. The rest of the time Marina taught her herself. She bought textbooks, downloaded programs, remembered what she knew, Googled what she didn't. Ally learned quickly. She turned out to be a smart girl, lively and curious. It was just that no one had ever taken the time before. In the spring, just as she had promised, Marina's mom came to visit. Marina met her at the station, small, gray-haired, but still unbreakable. They hugged right there on the platform, for a long time, in silence. Then her mom stepped back, looked at her daughter, and said, "You've changed." "Have I?" "Yes. You've become brighter. Like someone turned a light on inside you." Marina laughed. Ally turned it on. "She's my little magician." Her mom stayed with them for a month. She took care of Ally, baked her famous pies, walked through the forest, gasping at the beauty. One evening, when Ally was already asleep, they sat on the porch, looked at the stars, and talked. "You know," her mom said, "I never stopped believing. Not for a minute. Even when you were locked up, even when everything was against you, I knew you'd make it out. You're my daughter. You're strong. Mom. No, listen. I have to say this. I'm proud of you. Not because you were cleared, you weren't, on paper you were still guilty. But because of how you live. Because you didn't break. Because you took in this girl and became her mother. That's more than any acquittal." Marina stayed silent. The word stuck in her throat. "And one more thing," her mom added. "I believe the truth will come out. Sooner or later. Things like that don't stay hidden forever. That woman, what was her name? Helen? Yes. She'll get what's coming to her. Life is fair, it's just sometimes very slow." Marina nodded. She had long stopped thinking about Helen. Or rather, she had forced herself to stop. It was like a wound you couldn't touch, healed on the surface, but still aching deep inside. Sometimes at night she woke up with that name on her lips and lay in the dark, listening to her heart pound. Then she would go to Ally, watch her sleep, and calm down. The past was past. The present was here. Her mom left in early June, taking jars of jam they had made together with Ally and a promise to come back in the fall. Marina walked her to the station and cried the whole way back. Not from grief, but from emotions spilling over. Summer was hot, bright, endless. They swam in the river cold, forest-fed, with a sandy bottom. They gathered mushrooms and berries. They went to the settlement for groceries, and Ally already knew everyone by name, greeted people, smiled. Michael called her our ally and slipped her candy. Lucy taught her how to give injections on oranges from now and promised that when she grew up, she'd take her on as an assistant. Even the gloomy Sergeant Williams softened and one day brought them a kitten. He'll catch mice. We've got too many. They named the kitten Whiskers. He was orange, fluffy, and completely useless. He didn't catch mice, but he slept on Ally's pillow and purred loudly at night. Marina pretended to grumble, but she was happy. The house was becoming more alive: sounds, smells, movement. In August, a letter arrived. A plain white envelope in the mailbox they used in the settlement. Having a mailbox in the middle of the forest would have been absurd. Marina picked it up automatically, thinking it was another routine notice from Child Services, which came regularly. But the return address was unfamiliar: a law firm from Portland. She opened the envelope at home, while Ally was playing in the yard with Whiskers. Inside was a single page. She started reading, and her hands began to shake. Dear Marina, we represent the interests of Irene Kowalski, former nurse of the maternity ward at Hospital No. During preparation for legal proceedings against Helen Crawford, our client has expressed her willingness to give testimony regarding a case previously considered with your involvement. Irene Kowalski states that her testimony in that case was given under pressure and did not correspond to reality. She is prepared to testify that the decision to delay the operation was made by Helen Crawford, as well as about the falsification of documents submitted to the investigation. If you are interested in a review of your case, please contact us at the phone number listed below. Marina read the letter 3 times. Then she sat down on the bench and stared at the wall. Irene. Quiet, invisible Irene with the frightened eyes. The one who had lied in court, staring at the floor. The one who helped put an innocent person behind bars. Now she wanted to tell the truth. And Helen, there was some kind of legal case against her. What had happened? When? Marina picked up the phone and dialed the number from the letter. A young, businesslike male voice answered. He introduced himself as Andrew, a legal assistant, and explained the situation. It turned out that a criminal case had been opened against Helen. More than one. Official forgery, bribery, negligence resulting in a patient's death. The last one was especially serious. A laboring woman, a young woman, had died the previous year. The story was high profile, made it into the press. The family hadn't accepted it, hired strong attorneys, dug deep. And they dug up so much that even Helen's protectors, she had them, and powerful ones, couldn't shield her anymore. Irene ended up at the center of it all. She was still working in that department and, as it turned out, had been silent about many things for years. Now that Crawford was going under, the rat was fleeing the sinking ship. Irene gave testimony on several episodes, including Marina's case. Her testimony was confirmed by other evidence. Records were found, surveillance cameras that supposedly hadn't existed back then, witnesses who had previously kept quiet. Your case can be reviewed, Andrew said. There's a strong chance of full rehabilitation. Complete. With the conviction removed and rights restored. Marina listened and couldn't believe it. So many years. So many years she had lived with that mark, that injustice, that pain. And now, so simply, so matter-of-factly, she was being told that everything could change. I need to think, she finally said. Of course. But keep in mind, the deadlines are tight. If you want to join the proceedings, I'll call. She hung up and sat there for a long time without moving. Outside the window, Ally was laughing, chasing Whiskers around the yard. The sun was shining. The world kept spinning. That evening, she told Ally. Not everything, of course not about prison, not about the trial. Just, remember how I told you I used to work at a hospital? Well, something bad happened there, and I was blamed for something I didn't do. And now it turns out I was right. And they might forgive me. Officially. Ally listened seriously, like an adult. Then she asked, "Does that mean you'll leave?" "No." Marina pulled her close. "Never. I'm not going anywhere. You're my family. Where would I go without you?" Ally thought for a moment. "Then that's good. Let them forgive you. You're good. You should be forgiven." Marina smiled through tears. "Thank you, sweetheart." She called the firm the next day. Said yes, she wanted to participate. Yes, she was ready to testify. Yes, she would come. The trip to Portland was strange. Marina hadn't been there for almost 2 years since she left for the forest. The city felt foreign, too big, too loud. She stayed with her mom, of course her mom insisted. Ally had to stay behind, Lucy agreed to watch her. The separation was hard on both of them. "I'll be back soon," Marina promised. "In a week. 2 at most." "I'll wait," Ally said. Every day. The trial against Helen took place in the same building where Marina herself had once been tried. She sat in the gallery and looked at her former boss. Helen had aged, her hair had gone gray, her face was drawn, her shoulders slumped. She sat in the defendant's seat, staring straight ahead, expressionless, emotionless. As if none of this was happening to her. Irene testified haltingly, nervously, wiping away tears. She talked about pressure, about threats, about how Crawford forced her to sign documents she hadn't read. About that night when the boy died. About how Crawford ordered the law to be altered, Marina's signature forged, false testimony given. "Why didn't you tell the truth back then?" the prosecutor asked. "I was scared," Irene whispered. She could do anything. She said she'd destroy me. That no one would believe me. That I'd end up in prison myself. I was young and stupid. I didn't know what to do. Marina listened and felt something strange. Not anger, anger had burned out long ago. Not satisfaction, what satisfaction could there be, with so many lives ruined? More like exhaustion. And relief. As if the stone she had been carrying around her neck all these years had finally fallen away. During a recess, a woman approached her, young, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. "Are you Marina Silverton?" "Yes. I'm the mother of that boy. Daniel." Marina froze. The world narrowed to this face, these eyes filled with pain. "I wanted to. I have to." The woman stumbled over her words. "I thought it was your fault. All these years. I hated you. And now. I understand," Marina said quietly. "I would have hated me too. Please forgive me." "For what?" "For not believing you. For not trying to find the truth. For everything." They stood facing each other, two women whose lives had collided at the worst moment imaginable. And now, here, between them there was no hatred. Only shared pain. Maybe the beginning of something like forgiveness. "I don't hold any anger," Marina said. "You lost your son. That's worse than anything that happened to me." The woman nodded. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." She left. Marina watched her go and thought about Daniel. About the boy she couldn't save. About how she sometimes still dreamed of his tiny fists. Now, maybe, those dreams would fade. Now that the truth was finally known. Helen was convicted. The irony of fate. When the sentence was read, Crawford didn't flinch. She only pressed her lips together even tighter, a familiar gesture Marina remembered all too well. Marina's case was sent for review. 2 months later, endless bureaucracy, paperwork, hearings, the decision was issued. The conviction is overturned. Criminal prosecution is terminated due to lack of elements of a crime. Rehabilitation. Full. Marina stood in the courtroom, listened to those words, and cried. For the first time in many years, truly, openly, sobbing without restraint. Her mom held her on one side, Anthony on the other. Journalists' cameras clicked. And she cried and couldn't stop. Then there were interviews. She turned down most of them but agreed to one with a small local outlet. She told her story. About injustice. About prison. About life after. About Ally. About how something new can be built out of ruins. Did you grow bitter toward the system? The reporter asked. Toward the people who did this to you? Marina thought for a moment. No, she said honestly. Becoming bitter means giving them a piece of yourself. And I don't want to do that. I want to live. Really live a full life. With my daughter, with my mom, with people who love me. That matters more than any anger. The article came out a week later. Many people read it. Strangers wrote to Marina with words of support, with similar stories, with gratitude that she hadn't given up. She replied to everyone briefly, but sincerely. Every message reminded her that she wasn't alone. That there were many like her. And that sometimes, justice does win after all. She returned home, to the forest, at the end of October. Ally ran toward her along the path, waving her arms, and Whiskers charged after her with his tail held high. They collided in the middle of the clearing, hugged, and tumbled into the yellow leaves. You're back. I'm back. Ally shouted. I counted the days. 23 days. I counted too, Marina admitted. Every single one. They went into the house. It smelled of baked apples Lucy had made them while Marina was away. On the table stood a bouquet of asters and a pickle jar. Whiskers immediately jumped onto his usual spot on the windowsill and began washing his face. Well, Marina said, looking around, I think I'm home. Home, Ally confirmed. Forever. That winter was snowy but mild. They went sledding down the hill behind the house, built snowmen, fed chickadees at the feeder. Marina started preparing for exams. She decided to reinstate her medical license now that she could. Not to return to midwifery, that chapter was closed. But maybe she could be useful here, in the forest. As a paramedic, for example. Lucy was planning to retire in a couple of years anyway. Ally grew, shot up over the winter, matured. She turned 7, and Marina threw a real birthday party with cake, candles, presents. Lucy and Michael came, and even Sergeant William stopped by, bringing a huge stuffed bear that barely fit through the door. Ally was happy. Marina watched her and thought, this is it. This is what made everything worth surviving. In the spring, Mom came. This time for good. She sold her apartment in Portland and decided to move in with her daughter permanently. I'm done rattling around alone, she said. I'll work as a grandma. Ally was thrilled. She had never had a grandma before. Now she did. They finished the second floor well, insulated the attic and turned it into a cozy room. Mom settled in there. Marina and Ally lived downstairs. And Whiskers, of course, who considered himself in charge of the entire house and, frankly, was right. That summer, Marina passed her exams and received authorization to work as a paramedic. Lucy solemnly handed over the keys to the medical station and headed off to live with her son in Seattle to enjoy her retirement in warmth. Now Marina was the only medical professional in Cedarville and the surrounding area. There weren't many patients, locals, hunters, the occasional tourist. But every case mattered. She treated, bandaged, advised, went on calls on foot, hitching rides, sometimes on skis. And every time she helped someone, she felt, this is why I'm here. In the fall, geologists arrived in the settlement. They set up a camp nearby, searching for something underground. Among them was a young man named David, an engineer from Spokane. He injured his leg on a route and was brought to Marina. She examined him, put on a splint, and told him not to put weight on it for a week. He listened, nodded, and looked at her with his gray eyes attentive, interested. After that, he started coming into the settlement on errands. He brought candy for Ally, helped Marina split firewood, sat in the kitchen drinking tea with Mom. Mom watched all this with barely hidden approval. Ally was cautious. She was still afraid of unfamiliar men, but gradually she warmed up. David knew how to approach her. He didn't push, didn't impose himself. He was just there. Patiently. Calmly. He's a good one, Mom said one day. Serious. Rare these days. Mom, Marina rolled her eyes. Don't start. But Marina saw it too. And felt it. Something warm, forgotten, long buried under layers of pain and exhaustion. David looked at her as if she were important. Not her story. Not her past. Not her conviction. Her. Marina. A woman. Just a woman. They got married the following spring. Modestly, without any fuss, signed the papers in the district center, then gathered at home around a festive table. Ally was the witness, serious in her new dress, with a flower braided into her hair. Mom cried with happiness. Whiskers purred on the windowsill. David moved in with them. He found work with one of the survey teams that constantly moved through the forests, leaving for 2 weeks at a time and then returning for one. Marina missed him when he was gone and rejoiced when he appeared at the door, tired, bearded, smelling of campfires and pine. He officially adopted Ally. She became Ally Gordon, like her new dad. Ally took a long time to get used to calling him Dad. At first it was Uncle Dave, then just Dave, and only after a year, shyly, testing it out, Dad. David never demanded it, never rushed her. He just loved her. It showed in the small things, in the care, in the way he read to her at night, taught her to build a campfire, carried her on his shoulders when they walked through the forest. Another year later, they had a daughter. Small, loud, with dark hair and gray eyes, the spitting image of her father. They named her Rosa, in memory of the woman who had once saved Ally. Mom helped with the baby. Ally buzzed around, playing the role of big sister. Whiskers eyed the new resident with disapproval but made peace within a month and even started sleeping near the cradle, standing guard. Marina fed Rosa at night. Moonlight shone through the window, and somewhere far away an owl hooted. She thought about the past, about the young woman who once stood in a courtroom listening to an unjust sentence. About the woman who entered an abandoned house and found a frightened child. About all the forks in the road, the coincidences, the decisions that had led her here to this house, this life, these people. If not for prison, she wouldn't have left. If she hadn't left, she wouldn't have bought the house. If she hadn't bought the house, she wouldn't have found Ally. If not for Ally, she wouldn't have met David. If not for David, there would be no Rosa. A chain of events that had once seemed like a catastrophe turned out to be a road to happiness. Strange. Unfair. Miraculous. Rosa sniffled, full, and Marina carefully laid her in the cradle. Nearby, in the children's room, Ally slept, her Ally, her first daughter, her miracle from an abandoned cabin. Downstairs, Mom was making breakfast. For 3 years now she had woken up earlier than everyone else, because older people don't sleep much. David would return from the expedition tomorrow, and Marina would need to make his favorite pancakes. Marina stepped onto the porch. The morning was cool, dewy. The forest stood around her, green, endless, familiar. Somewhere far away, in another world, in another life, that hospital, that city, those people still existed. Helen was in prison. Irene was probably still working as a nurse, or maybe not, who knew? Daniel's parents lived with their pain, which might have eased a little now that the truth had come out. And Marina stood on the porch of her home, looked at the sun rising over the forest, and was happy. Truly. Completely. Without conditions. Mom. Ally called from inside the house. Breakfast is ready. Grandma made pancakes. Coming, Marina called back. She smiled to herself, to this morning, to this life, and went to her family. The pancakes were hot and fluffy, with a golden crust. Mom made them by her special recipe, with kefir and a pinch of baking soda. Ally was already sitting at the table, swinging her legs, spreading raspberry jam on another pancake so thick it dripped onto the oilcloth. Whiskers circled underfoot, begging for a bite. Rosa slept in her cradle, smacking her lips in her sleep. Sit, sit, Mom slid a plate toward Marina. They'll get cold. And the tea's ready strong, just how you like it. Marina sat down, took a pancake, and bit into it. The taste of childhood, the same one from long ago, from a small kitchen in a Portland apartment where Mom used to make pancakes on Sundays, and little Marina sat on a stool, swinging her legs and waiting. The circle had closed. Only now it was Ally sitting on the stool, and that felt right. Mom, is Dad coming today? Ally asked with her mouth full. Tomorrow, Marina corrected. And don't talk with your mouth full. How many times do I have to tell you? Ally swallowed, stuck out her tongue clean and continued, and he'll bring me rocks. He promised to bring pretty rocks. David always brought her rocks from expeditions, quartz, amethyst, strange minerals with sparkling flecks. Ally already had a whole collection, kept in a tin cookie box and counted regularly. 23 stones. She knew the name of each one, remembered where it came from and the story Dad told about it. Of course he will, Marina said. When has he ever lied to you? Ally thought hard, honestly searching her memory. She found none. She smiled, satisfied, and reached for another pancake. After breakfast, Marina went to work to the medical station. It wasn't far, about a 20-minute walk through the forest along a well-worn path. She loved that walk, the morning air, the birdsong, patches of sunlight on the moss. Sometimes she met squirrels along the way, red, fluffy, completely unafraid of people. Once she saw a fox, standing on a rise, watching intently, then flicking its tail and disappearing into the bushes. The medical station was located in the former community hall, the same one where Sergeant Williams had once sat. There was no officer in the settlement anymore. He had been transferred elsewhere, leaving Cedarville without law enforcement. But there hadn't been any crime for years, so no one complained. Marina unlocked the door and let the morning light into the small office. It smelled of iodine and cleanliness. A stack of patient files lay on the desk. Monthly reports needed to be filled out. Routine. Paperwork. But it didn't annoy her. After everything she had been through, Marina had learned to appreciate routine. It held stability, predictability, peace. Her first patient was old Matthew, an 80-year-old man living on the edge of the settlement. He complained about his knee. It's acting up, damn thing. Rain's coming. Marina examined it, applied ointment, wrapped it. Old Matthew sat there, groaning, telling stories about his youth working in logging camps, getting married, raising 3 sons. The sons had long since moved to cities, visited rarely, called even less. Old Matthew didn't complain, but in his eyes Marina saw that special kind of elderly sadness she had learned to recognize. Loneliness. It was worse than any illness. Come by on Sunday, she said, walking him to the door. Mom's baking a pie. We'll have tea. Old Matthew beamed. I'll come, I surely will. Thank you, dear. He left, limping slightly, but looking somehow younger. Marina watched him go and thought, this is it, this is what really matters. Not medications, not procedures, but human warmth. Attention. A word said at the right moment. They don't teach that in medical school, but it might be the most important thing of all. By noon she finished seeing patients and headed home. On the way, she stopped by Michael's place. She needed to arrange firewood for the winter. Michael lived alone in a sturdy house with carved shutters. Chickens ran around the yard, a pig snorted in the shed, and a huge shaggy dog named Bear slept on the porch. Come in, Michael said, seating her at the table and pouring cider from a fogged-up pitcher. How's life? How are the girls? All good. Marina took a sip of the cider, cold, tart, homemade. Ally's going to school, Rosa's growing. Mom's with them, helping out. That's how it should be, Michael nodded approvingly. Family, that's the main thing in life. Me, I'm on my own now. Wife passed, kids moved away. Gets lonely. Only Bear keeps me company. Hearing his name, Bear lifted his head, wagged his tail, then dropped his muzzle back onto his paws. They agreed on the firewood. Michael promised to bring 3 cords of cedar and 3 of pine by October. He named a very fair price, almost symbolic. Friends discount, he winked. Over the years, Marina had become one of them. Not right away, not all at once, but solidly. The settlement had accepted her, recognized her, included her in its small world. That meant a lot. At home it smelled delicious. Mom was cooking fresh cabbage soup. Ally was doing homework at the table, her tongue sticking out in concentration. Rosa was cooing in her playpen, studying a rattle. Whiskers slept on the windowsill, belly turned to the sun. How was work? Mom asked without turning from the stove. Fine. Old Matthew came by, we worked on his knee. I invited him over for tea on Sunday. You don't mind? Of course not. He's a good man, just lonely. Let him come, we'll chat. Marina walked over to Ally and glanced at her notebook. Math addition and subtraction. Everything correct, handwriting neat and careful. Ally tried very hard, she was diligent, responsible beyond her years. Maybe because she had learned early that nothing in life comes easily. Well done, Marina stroked her head. Finish up and we'll go for a walk while the weather's nice. They went to the river. Marina, Ally, and Rosa in the stroller. The river wasn't wide, but it was fast, with clear water and a sandy bottom. Willows grew along the bank, their branches dipping toward the water. Ally immediately ran off to look for pretty stones, another passion of hers, besides Dad's collection. She gathered flat stones for skipping, as she called, throwing them across the water so they bounced. Marina sat on a fallen log, gently rocking the stroller and watching the water. Rosa snuffled, falling asleep to the steady motion. The sun warmed her back, the air smelled of river freshness and heated grass. It was good. So simple, and so good. Mom, look. Ally ran up and showed her a stone, smooth, flat, with a white stripe down the middle. Pretty, right? I'm keeping it. Pretty, Marina agreed. What will you name it? Ally had a habit of naming her stones, not all of them, only the special ones. Stripey, Ally decided after a moment. Because of the stripe. Logical. Ally ran off to search some more. Marina followed her with her eyes, the slender figure in a blue dress, dark hair flying. Her daughter. Her first daughter, a gift from fate she never expected and never earned. Or maybe she did earn it. Maybe everything she went through was the price for this happiness. A strange, cruel accounting of the universe. That evening David called. The connection, as always, was spotty. He spoke in fragments, through static, but the important part came through. All good. I'll be there tomorrow. Miss you. Did you find stones? Marina asked. What? Yeah, I did. Can you hear me? For Ally. Agate. Beautiful. I hear you. She's waiting. We all are. Love you. Tomorrow. The call dropped. Marina put the phone down and smiled. Love you. He didn't say it often, not because he was stingy with words, but because for him they carried weight. Something real. Not small change, but something you had to earn and protect. She stepped onto the porch. The sun was setting behind the forest, painting the sky pink and orange. Somewhere far away an owl hooted. From inside came Mom's voice. She was reading Ally a bedtime story. Rosa was already asleep in her room, and through the open window Marina could hear her steady breathing. Marina stood there, watching the sunset, thinking how strange life is. Just a few years ago she had been at the very bottom, without freedom, without hope, without a future. And now she had everything. Family. Home. Work. Love. And the sky above her, vast, endless, hers. David arrived the next day around lunchtime. Ally heard the engine first, ran onto the porch, jumping up and down. Dad. Dad's coming. The old pickup that had given him a ride from the station appeared from behind the trees and stopped by the gate. David got out, tanned, unshaven, backpack over his shoulder. Ally rushed to him and wrapped herself around his neck. He lifted her and spun her around. You've grown, he declared. At least 2 centimeters. 3, Ally protested. We measured. Grandma marked it on the door. Then 3. Sorry, my mistake. Marina walked up and hugged him tight, long breathing in the familiar scent. Welcome home. Glad to be home. They went inside. Mom was already setting the table. Feeding David right away was an unwritten rule. He ate and talked about the expedition, about a bear they spotted on the route, about a river where they caught trout, about findings that might turn out to be promising. Ally listened, mouth open. For her, Dad's stories were like fairy tales, only real. After lunch he pulled gifts from his backpack. For Mom, a beautiful floral scarf. For Marina, wooden earrings, handmade, bought from some craftsman in a taiga village. And for Ally, stones. 3 of them, an agate with cloud-like patterns, a piece of rock crystal, and something dark and shiny whose name Marina didn't know. That's obsidian, David explained. Volcanic glass. Ancient people made knives and arrowheads from it. Ally held the obsidian in her palm and stared at it with reverence. Then she pressed it to her chest and ran off to add it to her collection. "You're spoiling her," Marina said without reproach. "I have the right," David replied. "She's my daughter." That evening, after the girls fell asleep, they sat together on the porch. Drank tea. Watched the stars. David spoke quietly about work, colleagues, plans for the next season. Marina listened, leaning against his shoulder. "You know," he said suddenly, "sometimes I think about how things would have turned out if I hadn't twisted my ankle back then. If I hadn't come to your medical station. And what do you think? That sometimes troubles aren't troubles at all, but gifts from fate in bad packaging." Marina smirked. "Philosopher. Geologist. That's almost the same thing, except geologists carry rocks." They laughed softly so as not to wake the children. And it was good. Laughing together. Being silent together. Just being together. Nothing needed explaining, nothing needed proving. They knew everything about each other and accepted it. Fall came early, already at the end of August. Leaves turned yellow, then red, then fell from the trees like golden rain. Ally started school not at home anymore, but a real one in the district center. Every day the school bus picked her up, and every day she came back with news about the teacher, classmates, lessons. She made friends, girls from a parallel class with whom she sat during breaks and traded stickers. Marina felt both happy and anxious. Ally was growing up, stepping into the world, moving away slowly, almost imperceptibly, but inevitably. It was right. That's how it should be. Still, it made her a little sad. "Don't be sad," Mom said, noticing her pensive look. "That's life. Kids grow up and leave. But children remain. And grandchildren. It all goes in a circle." "I'm not sad," Marina objected. "I'm just thinking. Thinking too much is bad for you. Better make some dumplings, Dave's coming soon." David came and went, that was the rhythm of their life. 2 weeks there, 1 week here. Marina got used to it, learned not to ache, to fill the emptiness with things to do. Work, kids, house, chores. There was no time to be bored. In October, something happened that stirred the whole settlement. Journalists from Spokane arrived, from television. They were making a film about life in the forest, about people who chose the wilderness over the city. They were looking for interesting, unusual stories. Someone local, probably Michael, told them about Marina. About her past. They came to her house, 2 young guys with a camera and a microphone. Polite. Persistent. They wanted an interview, wanted to film how she lived, worked, raised her children. Marina refused. She didn't need fame, didn't need cameras. She had come here to hide from the past, not to tell the whole country about it. "But this matters," the journalist said, a young man with burning eyes. "Your story isn't just about you. It's about the system, about injustice, about how a person can be broken. And about how someone can rise again. People need to hear this." "People have heard it," Marina replied. "There was an article. After the trial. That's enough." That article had a small circulation, a local paper. This could be seen by the whole country. It could help others. Marina hesitated. Help others. It sounded right. And at the same time, terrifying. Opening up again, exposing her pain, her life. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Okay. But not too long. We're leaving in 3 days." That evening she discussed it with David. He listened, nodded. "It's your decision," he said. "But if you ask me, I think you should do it." "Why?" "Because your story deserves to be told. Because now, when everything ended well, you can give hope to people in the same situation. Because staying silent means letting the system win." Marina looked at him. At his serious, honest face. At eyes full of faith in her. And she knew he was right. "All right," she said. "I agree." The filming took 2 days. The journalists filmed the house, the forest, the medical station. Filmed Marina at work, playing with her daughters, cooking. They interviewed her, Mom, Ally. Ally treated the cameras with curiosity but without excitement. She answered questions seriously, like an adult. "Are you happy here?" the journalist asked. "Yes," Ally answered simply. "This is my home. This is my family." Listening to that, Marina felt her throat tighten with tears. The film aired a month later. Marina watched it at home, on a laptop, online. David sat beside her, holding her hand. Mom wiped her tears with a handkerchief. Ally watched without blinking. The story was told well, honestly, without exaggeration. They showed her past, the trial, the prison. They showed the house in the forest, Ally, Rosa, their life. At the end, Marina spoke to the camera, sitting on the porch with the forest behind her. "I don't know why all of this happened to me," she said. "Maybe there is no why at all. Maybe it just happened. But I know this: it didn't break me. On the contrary, it made me stronger. It taught me to value what I have. It taught me to forgive. And most importantly, it taught me how to love. Truly, with my whole heart. Because when everything is taken away from you, you finally understand what really matters. Not a career, not money, not status. But people. The ones who stand by you. The ones who believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. My mom. My daughter. My husband. They are my life. And I'm grateful to fate for every single day I get with them." The screen went dark. The room was silent. Then David wrapped his arms around her. "I'm proud of you," he said. "So proud." After the film aired, letters started coming in. So many letters, from all over the country. From people who had lived through similar injustice. From those still fighting. From those who simply wanted to say thank you. Marina replied whenever she could. Every letter mattered. Life went on. Rosa learned to walk, then to talk. Ally finished first grade. David found a permanent job in Spokane, so he no longer had to leave for weeks at a time. Did they move to the city? No. They decided to stay. The forest was their home. Forever. 5 years passed. Then 10. Ally grew up, finished high school, and left for college. For years later she returned with a degree in biology and a fiancé, a quiet young man with kind eyes. They got married in the settlement, outdoors, in the forest. Marina stood there watching her daughter in a white dress say "I do," and couldn't hold back her tears. Rosa grew up too. Lively, fearless, nothing like her sister. She climbed trees, caught frogs, dreamed of becoming a ranger and protecting the forests. David adored her. Mom grew older but stayed strong. She helped around the house, took care of the grandkids, baked her famous pies. Sometimes Marina caught her thoughtful gaze and knew exactly what she was thinking about: how far they had come, what life used to be like, and what it had become. Whiskers died at 16, quietly, in his sleep. They buried him under the apple tree in the yard. Ally came home specifically for the funeral and cried openly. "He was the first one," she said. "The first one who accepted me in this house." Later, another cat appeared, Ginger, just like Whiskers. They named him Whiskers Jr. He was just as clueless and just as loved. Marina kept working as a paramedic. She treated, helped, comforted. Over the years, hundreds of patients passed through her hands. Some she saved, others she simply eased the pain for. And every time she felt it was right. That she was exactly where she was meant to be. One cold December evening, a young woman came to her. Frightened. Pregnant. "Please help," she said. "My contractions started. I won't make it to the city." Marina got her into the car, David drove, and they raced to the medical station. The labor was long and difficult. But Marina didn't panic. She didn't give up. She did what she knew how to do. What she had once been trained to do. And at 3 a.m, with the blizzard howling outside, a boy was born. Tiny. Screaming. Alive. Marina received him, wiped him down, and handed him to his mother. The young woman cried with happiness and exhaustion. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Marina stood there, looking at the baby, at his tiny clenched fists, and felt peace. Finally. After so many years, after all the nightmares and pain, she felt complete, absolute peace. The circle had closed. She couldn't save Daniel, but she saved this boy. And that mattered. What will you name him? Marina asked. The woman looked at the baby, then at Marina. Daniel, she said. After my grandfather. Daniel. Marina nodded. Smiled through her tears. A beautiful name. She stepped outside. The storm had calmed, the sky had cleared. The stars burned bright, cold, endlessly distant. Marina tilted her head back, looking at them, and thought about life. About how full it is of accidents and miracles. About how even from the deepest darkness, you can find your way into the light. About how nothing happens for nothing. Not even pain. Not even injustice. Not even those 2 years behind bars. All of it led her here. To this moment. To this peace. David was waiting in the car. Everything okay? Everything's okay, Marina said. A boy. Healthy, strong. They named him Daniel. David looked at her and understood. He hugged her. They sat like that in silence while the engine warmed up. Then they drove home through the winter forest, under a sky full of stars. At home it smelled of cinnamon and apples. Mom was baking a pie. Rosa was doing her homework at the table. Whiskers Jr. slept on the windowsill. Everything was as usual. Like every day. And it was beautiful. Marina took off her coat and joined her family. She hugged her mom, kissed Rosa on the crown of her head, and sat down next to David. How's the girl? Mom asked. She gave birth. A boy. Everything's fine. Thank God. They sat together, drank tea with pie, talked about little things. About Rosa's test tomorrow. About ordering firewood. About Ally promising to come for Christmas with her husband and their son. Simple, ordinary things, the things life is made of. And Marina looked at them, at her people, at her home, and knew it. She was home. She was where she belonged. She was happy. The past stayed in the past. The pain was gone. All that remained was love, gratitude, and the endless sky above. This was her story. A story of falling and rising. Of loss and finding. The story of Marina, who once stood in a courtroom innocent, yet convicted. And who now stood on the porch of her own home, under the stars, knowing that none of it had been in vain. Everything had meaning. Everything had led her to happiness. And we're a national network. Millions of viewers. Marina shook her head. The journalists didn't leave. They set up camp in the settlement, filmed the locals, the nature, daily life. They waited for her to change her mind. One evening Ally came to her, sat down beside her, looked serious. Mom, why don't you want to talk to those guys with the cameras? Because I don't want to. Why don't you want to? Marina sighed. How do you explain this to a child? Because I'm tired of the past. I want to live in the present. Ally thought for a moment. But what if someone else is sitting in prison right now? For something they didn't do. And if they see your movie, maybe it'll make it easier for them. Maybe they'll understand that there's a way out. Marina looked at her. 7 years old. Just 7. And reasoning like an adult. Where did that come from? Where did you get so smart? Marina asked. From you, Ally answered simply. And from Grandma. And from Dad. You're all smart. The next day Marina agreed to the interview. Not for fame. Not for money. But for those who were where she once had been. For those who needed hope. The filming lasted 3 days. Marina talked about the hospital, the trial, the prison. About Ally, about the house, about her new life. The journalists filmed everything, her working at the medical station, walking with the children, stoking the stove. Sitting on the porch, watching the sunset. Are you happy? They asked her at the end. Yes, she answered without hesitation. Yes, I am happy. Despite everything I went through. Maybe because of it. When you hit rock bottom, you start to value every breath of air, every ray of sunlight, every smile. The film aired in winter, right before New Year's. Marina watched it with her family, sitting around the TV they had brought out of storage and hooked up to a satellite dish just for the occasion. On the screen was her unfamiliar, somehow different, yet recognizable. Saying the same words she remembered, but now they sounded heavier, more meaningful. Ally watched in silence, gripping Marina's hand. When they showed prison footage archival, not hers, but similar, she flinched. "That place is scary," she whispered. "Yes," Marina agreed. "But it's in the past." After the film, letters poured in. Dozens. Hundreds. People wrote from all over the country thanking her, sharing their stories, asking for advice. Marina read them all, replied to some. It was heavy, other people's pain, other people's tragedies. But it was also bright, because many wrote about hope, about how her story helped them not give up. One letter stood out. It came from a prison, the very one where Marina had once served time. It was written by a young woman, barely more than a girl, 22 years old, serving time for fraud. She watched the film in the recreation hall with other inmates. And she cried. "I understood," she wrote, "that life doesn't end behind a fence. That you can start over. Thank you for that." Marina sat for a long time with that letter in her hands. Then she wrote back a long, detailed reply about how to survive, how not to lose yourself, how to make plans for the future. She sent a care package: books, warm socks, candy. Small things, but important. Spring came late but fast. The snow melted in a week, rivers overflowed, the forest buzzed with birdsong. Marina opened the windows and let the fresh air in. It smelled of meltwater, earth, awakening. Ally turned 8. They celebrated big, everyone came. Neighbors, old Matthew, Michael, even some people from the district center Marina knew through work. David arrived early on purpose, bringing a huge cake he ordered in the city and hauled for 3 hours by connecting rides. Ally blew out the candles with her eyes squeezed shut. "Did you make a wish?" Grandma asked. "I did." "What was it?" "I can't say, or it won't come true." Everyone laughed. Marina looked at her girl, happy, surrounded by love, and thought, "This is it. This is what it was all for." That summer, they went on vacation for the first time. All together, Marina, David, Ally, Rosa, and Grandma. To the ocean, to California. For Ally it was a revelation. She had never seen the ocean before, never swum in salt water, never collected seashells on the beach. She raced along the shore, squealing with delight, building sandcastles. Rosa, who had just turned 1, sat in the shade under an umbrella, seriously examining a bucket and shovel. "This is good," Mom said, watching all of it. "You've done well for yourself, my girl." "Yes," Marina agreed. "I have." She sat on a lounge chair, watching David teach Ally how to swim patiently, carefully, holding her in his arms, and felt something inside finally let go. The last remnants of pain, fear, bitterness. They drifted away, dissolved in the salty air, carried off by the waves. All that remained was this: sun, sea, laughter, love. In the fall, Marina received another letter. This time not from a stranger, but from Irene, the very nurse who had once given false testimony against her and later repented. "Dear Marina," Irene wrote, "I watched the film about you. And I cried. I know you hate me, and you have every right to. I ruined your life. I was cowardly, vile, worthless. I still wake up at night and see your face in the courtroom. I know there is no forgiveness for me. But I want you to know that I am trying to become better. I work at a hospice now, caring for the dying. I'm trying, in some small way, to atone for what I did. I don't know if it will be enough. But I am trying." Marina read the letter on the porch, in the golden light of the autumn sun. And she felt nothing: no anger, no resentment, not even pity. Only weariness. And perhaps something like forgiveness. She wrote back. Short and simple. "I don't hate you. I stopped a long time ago. Live your life and don't torment yourself. The past is past." She sent it and forgot about it. The past really was past. It no longer had any power over her. The winter was mild, snowy, fairy tale-like. She and Ally built snowmen, went sledding, caught snowflakes on their tongues. Rosa was already walking unsteady, falling at every step, but stubbornly getting back up. She took after her father, just as determined, just as serious. On New Year's Eve, everyone gathered: family, neighbors, friends. The table was overflowing with food. Mom outdid herself. Old Matthew brought his accordion and played old songs. Everyone sang along. Michael told hunting stories, exaggerating so much that even bears seemed to snort skeptically. Ally danced with Dad. Rosa slept in Grandma's arms. Whiskers hid under the tree from all the noise. At midnight, they went out onto the porch to watch the fireworks. There were no fireworks, of course. Where would they come from in the forest? But the stars burned bright, like thousands of lights, and that was enough. "Happy New Year," David said, hugging Marina. "Happy New Year," she replied. Ally tugged at their hands. "Make a wish. Hurry. While the clock is striking." There was no clock either. The radio didn't work, the TV was off, but what did it matter? They stood under the stars, holding hands, each making their own wish. Marina didn't wish for anything specific. She just thought, let it stay like this. Let it continue. Let it last. In the spring, Marina found out she was pregnant. Again. A third child, unexpected, unplanned, but deeply wanted. She told David that evening after the kids were asleep. He stared at her, unbelieving, then laughed, scooped her up, and spun her around. "Careful." She laughed with him. "You'll drop me." "Never." When Mom heard the news, she cried with joy. Ally bounced around the room. "A little brother. Or a little sister. I'll help take care of them." Rosa didn't understand what was happening, but caught the excitement and laughed too, clapping her hands. The pregnancy was easy. Marina felt good, worked almost up until the very end. Only near the end, when her belly was already huge, did she allow herself to rest. She lay on the veranda, watching the forest, stroking her belly. Inside, a new little person was moving: her son or daughter, her continuation. She gave birth in the district center, at a small maternity ward. Everything went quickly, without complications. A boy 8 pounds 6 ounces, healthy and loud. When they placed him on her chest, Marina cried. Not from pain. Not from exhaustion. From overwhelming happiness. She, a midwife who had assisted at hundreds of births, was now on the other side. And it was beautiful. They named the boy Frederick, in honor of the man who had once built their house. Freddie. Freddie. Fred. He was a calm baby, hardly cried, slept a lot. Ally adored him, kept watch by his crib, was the first to run whenever he woke up. Rosa was a little jealous at first, but soon adjusted. After all, she was the big sister now, and that came with a certain status. Life flowed on. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. Ally grew, changing from a child into a teenager. Rosa started school, and now they rode the bus together, older and younger, almost friends. Fred took his first steps, said his first words, reached for his father's rocks with the same fascination Ally once had. David got promoted and now led an expedition team. He traveled less and came home more often. Mom aged, but held on busy around the house, caring for the grandkids, baking her famous pies. Whiskers, now very old, grew lazy and plump, but still slept on the windowsill and purred at night. Marina worked, healed, helped. She became someone everyone in the settlement knew. People came to her not only with illnesses, but for advice, for conversations, for news. She knew everyone by name, remembered who had been sick with what, who had which problems. It was hard work, especially in winter, when she had to wade through snowdrifts on house calls, but it was rewarding. Every healed person, every thank you, doctor, was a reward. Sometimes at night she still woke from nightmares. She dreamed of prison, the courtroom, that ward where little Daniel died. But now David was beside her. He would hold her, stroke her hair, whisper calming words. And the nightmares would retreat, dissolve into the darkness. One such night, Marina lay awake thinking about her life. If someone had told her 10 years earlier that everything would turn out like this, she would never have believed it. Back then, in that cell, she was sure her life was over. That ahead there was only grayness, emptiness, nothing. And yet ahead there had been everything. Love. Family. Home. Work. Meaning. She just had to pass through the darkness to see the light. In the morning she woke before everyone else. Stepped out onto the porch and looked at the forest. The sun was rising over the trees, the sky pink and gentle. Somewhere a bird was singing, sparrows chirped. It smelled of pine and dew. Ally came out of the house already grown, 16 years old, beautiful. She stood beside Marina, leaning on the railing. "Can't sleep?" Marina asked. "Yeah." "Thinking." "About what?" Ally was silent for a moment. Then she said, "I've decided. I'm going to be a doctor. Like you." Marina looked at her. "That's hard work. And a long education." "I know. But I want to. I want to help people. Like you do." They stood side by side, mother and daughter, two women fate had brought together in an abandoned house in the middle of the forest. And they didn't need words. Everything was already clear. "I'm proud of you," Marina said quietly. "I'm proud of you too," Ally replied. The sun climbed higher. A new day began. And ahead lay a whole life, with all its joys and sorrows, victories and defeats. Marina didn't know what the future would bring. But she knew one thing: whatever happened, she would handle it. She had already survived the worst. And she had endured. And grown stronger. Behind them, a door slammed. Fred was awake, pattering barefoot across the floor. Somewhere in the kitchen, dishes clattered as Mom started making breakfast. Rosa was calling for Whiskers, who had hidden himself somewhere again. David stepped onto the porch, wrapped his arms around Marina from behind, kissed the top of her head. "Good morning." "Good morning." They stood there together, Marina, David, Ally, and their whole small world, watching the sun flood the forest with golden light. And it was good. It was right. It was happiness, simple, real, earned. Marina smiled and went back inside, to her family, to her life, to her future. The door closed behind her, but it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of every new day. The beginning of every new happiness.